Welcome to the Sales Prospector Show, supported by Lease a Sales Rep and Inc. 5000 Company, helping our clients grow sales by securing guaranteed appointments, qualified leads, and guaranteed contracts for their services and products across the U.S. I'm your host, Gil Pagan. You can also find us at leaseasalesrep.com, and we are on all major social media channels. I have the privilege today of interviewing Al, and he is the CTO, Chief Technology Officer of Cerebri AI. They are a software technology company that has customer engagement software, and we're going to go through what they do there and learn a little bit about Al and how this all started. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very glad to be here.
Well, tell us what you're doing there, and tell us about the company, Cerebri, and would love to hear how you're making things better for customers in the technology space who are serving customers in e-commerce, and what you guys are doing. It sounds like you're doing some exciting stuff there.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad we are doing exciting things because especially during this COVID stressed time, being a startup is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
What we do inherently is we use the data already collected by companies, big companies, typically Fortune 500, but we have the ability to serve small and medium businesses. If the data set is good enough, we're using the data they are already collecting about touch points with the customers of any kind, and build customer journeys that allow us to measure the propensity of their customers to do specific actions, or the way their customer perceives their experience with that company. CX is big buzzwords. I think buzzwords are created by putting two letters together and seeing what flies. But the customer experience is becoming more and more important because customers have the ability in just about any market you deal with to switch from provider to provider very easily. The cell phone, the mobile phone, has allowed you to, you walk into a store and you can check the price of an item you see here at a competitor, or you have a bad experience and you can check right away if they are like providers that can supplement or replace the supplier you have now. So more and more, the ability for companies to anticipate the level of experience, the level of satisfaction of a customer is very important. And based on that, to decide and figure out if the customer is a prospect to upsell, is a prospect to cross-sell, is someone who is ready to bail out, churn out, and thus you have to decide if you want to spend the money to rescue or not. And we provide these capabilities through a Saas platform. We run typically behind the firewall of the corporations. Big corporations are extremely paranoid, as they should be, about the importance of the data from a privacy point of view and a misuse point of view. So when we deploy with large companies, we deploy on their cloud behind their firewall. We aggregate all the data, organize it, massage it, put our things together, and then we present a measure of the customer experience that integrates all the touch points and all the activities that our customers have made, which is much better than NPS, which is solely based on a survey. And we know that surveys are inherently non-reliable. And then we allow our customers to create cohorts of user based on behavior. That is to say, for a car maker, if we say, these are the 3 top % of the customers you have had a relationship with that are likely to buy an SUV during the month of November, then we can create that list. And that list is then passed to an execution engine that customer is able to execute. So at the core, what we do is we aggregate the data in a unique manner. It's the data that is already owned by our client, And then we organize it in a manner that allows us to measure the customer experience on an individual basis, customer by customer, and make recommendation customer by customer about what you should do to get them to buy, to buy more, to buy the specific products and the like.
Wow. So taking us through a real simple example, let's say a customer for you has, let's say it's a car dealership that has 5 locations, and let's say they are a luxury car dealership, say Infinity, for example, Toyota. Infinity is the luxury brand of Toyota, right? So you engage with this client that has these 5 locations, and you pull down data. So the client has to have some kind of data set and some historical data set, right? All right. So they can't be basically a new business, so they have to have enough data. I don't know what that means. They have to have 1,000 customers, or what is like the minimum to even begin to push into your platform?
Yeah, I mean, the 5 dealership might not be enough type of deal. What we typically need as a minimum is 100,000 touch points.
Okay.
And that can be 1 touch point for 100,000 dealers. That's a silly example. But it's the number of, take the number of customers and the number of interactions that you have. If you have 100,000 interactions, then you have a good data set to work with. The data can be well organized or not. We hear often the concern, well, my data is dirty and disorganized. And I'm like, if it's called big data, it's disorganized and dirty anyway.
Right.
So our software, which we have automated, simplifies and automates a lot of its cleaning. And does a lot of the reconciliation. And then we know pretty quickly if there is enough data to get good quality. We have different scores, different lists that can get created. Either it gives you a customer satisfaction index, or predicts what they're going to spend over the next 12 months, or predicts the price of a car they're willing to spend if they buy a car next year or 2 years from now. When it's more likely that they would buy a car, will they renew the lease at the end of the lease, and what have you. All this is shown through both an API, an application programming interface, that can allow the integration with a customer relation management system if you so desire, or we have a user interface, we have a UX that allows them to do that. Because at the end of the day, this is not about data science, this is not about data, it's about actionable insight that allows those people to do things. Now, the case of the car dealership and the car is important to us because, first of all, our first major deployment, which is in Europe, is with a network of car dealerships that is owned and managed by a top 10 automaker. So we like cars. And what was interesting in that first deployment is first validating that the technology worked, which was always a good thing. But the other is, if you take that people buy cars every, let's say, 5 to 6 years, we were questioning whether you would have enough signals to go and figure it out. By the way, I'm the exception. I recently bought a car, and it was the first time in 18 years. So definitively, I could not relate. But if you take people buying car every 5 to 6 years, the challenge was, this is a rare event. Can you predict what kind of car people will want and when they will want it and what have you? And the answer is yes, because what we use is we use the service information, and we use the marketing outbounds and the interest and what have you. And so what we do is, when we do this prediction, the machine, the algorithm, we take the integral view of all these customers. And it turns out that the service information, how often you come, do you come in Europe, you've got once a year, or the first year, the second year, you've got mandatory inspection, like the same way you have, for instance, you have to check the quality of your exhaust and the like. there's a very predictive patterns that emerge about the way people deal with the servicing of car and the kind of cars they're going to get and purchase. And our technology allows us to be a good prediction. Once we're done through the first debug and the like, we increased the rate of conversion on digital campaigns to sell car by a factor 6.
Oh, wow.
Not 6%,
Yeah.
by factor 6.
6x.
You can imagine the first time the numbers came back, I told my team, we're going to double check this, triple check, we're going to check with them and what have you, because this is the kind of too good to be true type of a deal. Well, it turns out it was true. The next time around, it was 7x. And then we optimized the way the customer, his dealership network, was able to use the technology, which is mostly in the form of lists. And they sold many more cars by using the customer we targeted. The other thing also, sorry, go ahead.
To interrupt. If the customer is not using the service department at the auto dealership in this example, particularly in the US, where a lot of people don't go back to the dealership, they go to the third party because they're cheaper. How can you track that through other AI mechanism of that customer?
They are data sets that you can go after and integrate. And this is something that you have to work with the dealership and the like. We are putting together a public network where it will have the ability for smaller players to kind of get together and make that work. Then the challenge is you don't want the information from one dealership network to be used by their competitors. And it took us a long time to figure out how to architect that solution. I mean, we filed 25 patents, and about 6 or 7 of them deal with the architecture that allows with this protection of information. But they are sources of info, and the power of machine learning, unlike business intelligence or regression, is if you have 2 or 3 touch points and I have 20, I can still try to align your behavior with mine. So we organize the information, pardon me, of all these customers in a systematic manner. And customers that have few pieces of data, we're still able to map what could happen. We even went a step further, not for car applications, but for a web application, more generically, where if you go you go to a website, you are in some cases you log in and password, so you have credentials and the like, so I know who you are. And in other cases, you're just going around and you don't want to enter your name and what have you. What we're able to do is we're able to map the behavior of someone who logged in with the behavior of someone who didn't. That means the insight we get from customer who are registered existing customer can now be passed on to non-yet registered customer and the like. And so what this allows our customers to do is to present the right information, the right offer, to bring the right page at the beginning. And it basically greases the way, it reduces the friction for the early adoption, for the early engagement. You know, when someone walks in the first time on a website, then you've got to figure out what to do. But the early behavior will give you a lot of insight, which now we map around the millions of interactions, the billions of interactions that might happen. So what has surprised me, because the first time I'm doing a B2C AI, I mean, we sell to businesses, but ultimately it goes to the customer, is when you have good data set and when you take the time component into account, how much signals about the customer behavior you can get. We are very time oriented. If you go to a website day after day after day, let's say for 10 days, versus every week for, let's say, 2.5 months, so you have 10 interactions, the fact that it's day to day versus every week or every other week gives you a lot of, it turns out to give you a lot of insight about what's going on. And so when we develop these models, they're very time centric and they take that dimension in. And what this allows you to do is to boost the quality of the behavior trait that you're able to abstract, and use them efficiently.
Hmm. Wow. So the using the car example as just again just to be consistent,
Yeah,
you
sure.
have 100,000 minimum touch points.
Yeah,
You have so touch points mean I get could be an email, it could be a direct mail piece, it could have went to the website, it could be any number of touch
yeah.
points. In marketing is what we yeah. In marketing we call well same thing touch points,
Yeah.
contacts.
Yeah.
So you got 100,000 touch points to work minimum data set. Those touch points could represent 10 touch points per customer, and it could be 10,000 customers, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So you have a database of 10,000 customers. You touch them 10 times. That's 100,000 touch points.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's a rule of thumb, and
right. I got you.
you know,
Yeah.
Europe has different behaviors than in the US with respect to mandatory services and the like. So
Right. No, I got you. So you
yeah,
got the so now you have this data, and that is from the client, and that data is given to you and put into your, I'm assuming, into your platform,
yes,
web-based, and then you pull out those customers. So out of these 10,000 customers, the you got about 1,000 that probably are going to buy or can be upsold within
yes,
the next 90 days
yep,
based on the algorithms and your
yep,
AI, right? And you
yeah,
give information to them, the client, they look at this information, then you said it goes into a execution engine. You don't mean your engine, you mean their stuff, right?
It could be their stuff or it could be our stuff, depending on when the limitations are. I mean,
Okay.
the challenge is when you're dealing with a workflow and an ecosystem, is you cannot say trash everything you've got and trust us. I mean, very few people can do it, and plus we like the challenge because we believe that our technology is better than legacy. So in some cases it can be this is the list and you put on the list, but let's say that the application is the sales manager or is the sales rep. They don't want to go to a CRM and whatever necessarily. They see this information coming because the customer is here. All the interactions that we have registered is going to tell you what's going on, and then we're going to say, this is the sell index. This is the purchase index for this customer at this moment. This customer is 84 and this customer is 68. Let's say the probability that they're going to buy is a limit. And now you can act on it. We also can say, based on their past purchases, brand, model, trim, this is what they're likely to like. And we're going to give you 3 or 4 choices in best you can do. And in this area, we have one algorithm, which we decided to call Crank. It's a variation on the page rank from Google, but it's different enough that we decided that, especially if you're dealing with a grudgy old man like myself, or cranking a car, let's call it Crank, and very talented PhD who developed it. And so what this was able to tell us in a luxury environment is able to pick up really esoteric cars. So for the application we're able to pick up Lamborghini.
Oh, wow.
No, this is, I apologize.
It's okay, it's all right.
Yeah. I declined the call. This is funny because I took my watch off, so it shouldn't ring. And so you have the ability to get this small signal. But one of the applications that was helpful for this customer is what is the propensity that this customer will be willing to buy financing from the get-go or insurance. And so these abilities.
Sorry, you're pulling that information from the dealership. You're not doing credit stuff. You're not.
No, we're not doing. We're
Okay.
doing credit-like stuff because we also are helping a bank. One of our earlier customer is a bank in Canada, and we're helping them in the adjudication of car loans.
Right.
So for there, we're using the information they use. Part of it is the credit information, but we don't generate a credit score. We input the credit score, and that's one of the variables we use.
Okay.
In the case, I mean, if you look into financing, which of course is a nice source of revenue for the dealer, or if you look into additional insurance, then knowing right away that this customer is likely to go for financing and what have you, allows you to tilt the conversation. So in this case, this is where the UX, the user interface, becomes important, because there's a limited amount of time for the sales representative to be able to figure out, do I push this or don't I push that?
Yeah.
For banking application, the company has three main locations, besides everybody's home for the moment. Austin, where we headquartered, Toronto, where we have the bulk of our staff, and then Washington, D.C. So we had a lot of experience in Canada, and in Canada, we had the ability to look into the data from a major car manufacturer, and we had information about the loans that were applied for people purchasing the cars. And what we were able to find out is that folks that took care of a car on a regular basis, so take them to the dealer with some regularity and what have you, are less likely to default on their loans than others who don't. Which, if you think from a behavioral point of view, if you are careful with the objects you own, the car, you're likely to be careful with your money. But what was fascinating is to see the data bring it up on its own. So, we've mix and match. I mean, evidently at the bank, we have many more data sets and the like. But the ability to put a measure of risk or put a measure of what the customer is likely to do, and then how to best entice them to do so. Is this a discount or not? We are in the middle of a pilot with a major wireless customer in the United States, and the issue there is churn. Well, one way to put churn is I'll give you $50 off, or I give you $100 off, and what have you. But if I give you $100 off and it has no impact at the end of the day, then I've wasted money. So in that case, the emphasis is on figuring out who is about to churn and what is the best way to retain them, if it's even worth trying to retain them, because if retaining them is going to cost you more money, then ultimately they're going to be back to you, then
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. So the platform itself, when you get the data, I mean, this is all web-based, right? SaaS model. Yes. So the client has to log into your platform to see this data and then act upon it, I guess, in whatever sales process, marketing process they'll have to pull that customer in. So obviously we got a sense that the car business seems to be a good industry for this. They have a high ticket item. Margins tend to be kind of tight, on the new cars. Used cars actually are higher margins, and the financing, they make money on the financing, they make money on service, all these add-ons, right? So other industry verticals that I guess would be a good example that your platform works on. I would think e-commerce, people who are buying a lot online and using a certain vendor company, same things apply. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. I want to bring one thing before we wrap up the automotive business.
Sure.
We developed a measure of customer engagement, which we call the Cerebri value. As you can tell, there's a lot of C's in the things we do. So the CV, which is not your curriculum vitae, but the Cerebri value, in the car of a purchase tells you how much are you willing to pay for your next car. In the recurring business, let's say for wireless or insurance or banking and what have you, it's how much are you willing to spend over the next 12 months or the next 24 months, and our customer sets that up. But in the case you're purchasing an item, it tells you how much you're willing to pay. And that becomes very important, because let's say that you've got a car that retails for $35,000, and you have another car that retails for 40 and another one that retails for 45. And at the moment where the person walks into your showroom, their Cerebri value, which is how much they are willing to spend at this moment in time, is $55,000, then it goes without saying which one you're going to push or not. And we even found the cases, which again, every now and then the data amazes you, where we were looking at an example, and it was in the United Kingdom, and we saw the Cerebri value climbing, and then we said that individual buying a car at a much lower amount. So, machine learning, as in anything else, is not perfect, but this one kind of tickles our fancy because it was 3 years ago earlier on. It turns out that that person had purchased a car for her or his son or daughter, we're not sure. But when he took the sum total of the two, that added to how much they were willing to spend, which was a case where it was going to be expended not on one purchase, but two purchases done the same day. Mm-hmm. Now to the question you ask is other industry where things work. If it's like a giant e-commerce and what have you, Amazon and Walmart took care of themselves, so we're not going to go there. Right. But you might have others that can, especially when you have an eclectic set of items you can buy. Not that we have a relationship with them, but recently I've been doing more of my share of Etsy. Etsy and Fixed Niche and others, kind of using algorithms such as the one we have. It would be great if we could sell them, but if they listen to your show, I sure hope they can follow up. Shameless trying to sell from a bad sales guy. Sure. But for them, for others, insurance. We've done a very successful pilot with an insurance company. Wireless, a telco. Both on the cable and the wireless side, who is likely to churn, who is likely to cut the cord. The cable company is going through a major shift to being a provider of programs to a provider of internet, and then you go buy your Showtime and your Starzy and so on. Mm-hmm. So managing those transitions is a good thing. So telco, insurance, banking, travel used to be a target, but we know what happened to that. Right. And those are the ones that we've been getting the most traction on. We have an unusual customer. It's unusual from the perspective of what we're doing there. We're working with a central bank, and we're doing a GDP, gross domestic product estimate for them. The goal is to predict what the growth in the GDP or the decrease in GDP for the recent past are. To help them with their forecast. And that was the first time they and we applied machine learning to GDP forecast, and the results were quite interesting, especially the half hour before the official number got released, where are we close, not close, are we close, not close. But people that have big data sets, when you have a repetitive business month in and months out, are good targets for us. Yeah, repetitive and big data sets. Yep. Yeah. So. And at time we operate beyond the firewall. So in cases we have to work with the connectivity of the data very extensively to be in the firewall. One successful pilot we have had with a bank in the Middle East, we received the data literally on a USB stick. We FedExed it, we received it, we copied it. We locked the stick into a very secure area, and we did the processing, and it worked. And it showed that there's so much power in this pattern recognition capability of machine learning when properly done, that if you've got a reasonable data set, we'll be able to create some insight. Wow, yeah, so I can see how the enterprise clients obviously are the target for your platform, just because they have such huge data sets and multiple, obviously, repetitive buying and the like. Yeah, I can see how that they would be a focus for you. That makes a lot of sense. So when you engage with a client for the first time, and they agree to do something with you, they give you the data set, you set up. You set up obviously either a portal for them to. Typically, first thing we do is we ask which cloud are you on, because we like to operate beyond the firewall, which simplifies a lot of issue with their IT department. Yeah. We are cloud agnostic, kind of. We are Azure first, but we can deploy it on Oracle Cloud, on the GCP, the Google Cloud, on AWS, as well as on high performance cluster, which is the term of art for the big iron farm of PCs and mainframes and what have you that you have down in the basement. So our architecture allows us to create the environment, standardize the environment, and then build on top of it. And at that point, it is a web app. The design is responsive, so you can see it on a tablet. You can see it on a PC. Because we show so much information, it gets a little tricky on the phone side, but we have not had many demand for it. I'm sure we can adapt, but has not been a focus. And the thing that we do, and we get this question often, is who is going to use this platform? And the answer is, who do you want it to be? The way we've defined the platform is the screen as a series of widgets, and you can think of it as different panes and the like. And we can, on a role-by-role basis, decide what customers, what roles at the customer sees what. So the sales folks are going to be interested in a specific set of information. The marketing folks in a different kind of information. The data science team, often there's a data science team at the customer, something else and the like. So the same platform will look and feel different from the information you have access to and the actions you're allowed to do on a role-by-role basis. You don't want to give a junior marketer the ability to execute a campaign that's going to cost $10 million. But to the director of marketing, if he or she uses the platform, yes, she will have the ability. So what we've done, and we spend as much time on the software design that we do on the algorithm design, is the ability to have a customized look and feel per customer about who has access to specific information. We had this experience in a recent insurance company. You've got different P&L centers. And while it's nice for them to know in great detail what's happening for their P&L, profit and loss, you might not want to get them too much detail about where someone else, another P&L. And while we try to stay away and not engage into office politics, because this is never healthy, is we understand that within the same company, different folks will, from a governance point of view, have access to different pieces of information. But at the end, it's the same backend and it's the same software. And what was painful, and I use this term rightfully, is we had to architect a platform so that we take advantage of getting smarter and smarter, but we cannot have the information, the data set of one customer impacts the result we're giving to someone else. We have to disassociate the software architecture, the machine learning architecture from the underlying data set they are manipulating. And that took us a long, long time. It is a non-trivial problem. And the reason why we want to do that is because if we find a new algorithm, a new method, a new widget that represents the information better, then we'd like all our licensees, all our customers to have access to it as it operates on their data set. So when a new customer comes in, they have the benefit of the experience that we have learned over engaging multiple customers, but they don't get any of the insight that come from the data sets of previous customers.
Wow. While you were talking, a couple of ideas came to mind in a different sector, with your forecasting ability, kind of the GPT example you were using. Can the software let's take hospitals for a minute, healthcare, large, wide area, a network of healthcare facilities across particular cities. Can the platform be used to identify patients that would have a propensity or more likelihood to use home healthcare services or need healthcare services, home health, assisted living facilities, that they are more than likely to go to an assisted living facility or to a nursing home. The patients are more than likely to abuse pain meds, that kind of stuff. Can you look at stuff like that? Because I could see one of our verticals is healthcare. So I'm thinking, and we sell tech software into healthcare. So I'm thinking of, wow, this data set for hospital networks, that your tool to identify, out of all these patients we have and all the visits we have, this subsegment will more than likely use home health care, fall into home health care soon, will probably go to a nursing home, which we won't be able to help them, or they may have enough funding money to go into assisted living. I mean, is it even possible with your platform?
Let me separate what is possible versus what's immediately feasible, if I may.
Okay, good.
We know about the regulation from HIPAA.
Right.
So you have to be very careful, but the main issues is you've got Epic and the other company whose name escapes me, that has this hold on the patient records, and they are fighting tooth and nail the mandate coming from the federal government with respect to having API that allows the exchange of information readily. So there's going to be the no, we tell you that this data for an HIPAA compliant application, you have to share it and get done and over it. And I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but this is extremely telling. Now there are other sources of data that can be helpful, such as the logs that the customers are keeping and the like. We have done a limited COVID-19 oriented test. If you're going to be stuck at home because of COVID-19, you might just try to see if you can help. And what we did with another startup located in Canada is to look into, based on symptoms that are reported and based on mood and other things that are self-reported by the customer, are we able to start to predict the likelihood that these people should get a test and go to the hospital. The data set was limited, so we didn't arrive into yet as of July 2022, a deployment or like deployment, but we have this customer journey, which builds up all these events that you do, can be readily morphed into a patient journey or to an advocacy journey. We've proven that it could be done on the limited data sets that we have. The challenge becomes the access to the data, the HIPAA compliance and the like. The problems have been solved through software and firewalls and the like. And as I stated, we typically run behind someone's firewall. But we believe that that is imminently doable. A friend of mine is very involved with the management of contact tracing and other things that the CDC and the FDA and NIH are working through with all the challenges that we know. And there is a demand for integration at a high level that allows people to manage this situation better. And we think that AI can play. We'll see where some of these discussion might go. But inherently, if you have event, another event, no event, then another event, and an outcome, if you've got enough diversity in the events, and if you've got the time information, and if the outcome is well defined, then the technologies that we have do apply. We very quickly, in a matter of weeks, we're able to have this analysis for COVID-19 based on the worst data you can ask about, which is the data that the people record. I was in the previous startup I had where I was the co-founder. I knew the co-founder of Cerebri AI who convinced me to join, and I'm very glad I did, because we're working hard, but we're having lots of fun because it's fun to change the world. And every time someone tells you you can't do it, and then you show it, you kind of be nice. So we're having fun. But what the customer records, what the patient records, is typically not that reliable. Especially if you ask them to record the weight. I'm just not speaking from experience. Of course I am.
Right.
I need to do some. And so we're able to get these elements. So the ability to integrate a limited amount of information that would come from these HIPAA compliant systems, I think could have a difference. And we'll have to see how, if you can't solve the situation we have with respect to COVID, there are other medical situations than COVID, totally aware. Through brute force and the provision of PPEs and so on, it is obvious that pattern recognition and pattern tracing, which is an inherent element in dealing with epidemiology of pandemics and the like, I think will play a role. We are very busy with our pilots, but when the opportunity comes, we are evaluating it. It also allows us to stress test our algorithm and stress test our software.
Right.
And that's always a good thing because you cannot be complacent, and our roadmap is very systematic on both the UX, how we manage the data set, how do we ingest the data set, and the kind of recommendations and list creation we make. So we look at it. We're a startup. If the right opportunity comes in and it's not totally misaligned with our roadmap, we'll go for it. We were not expecting to do the GDP of a major country, and yet we did it. And thank God we did, because one, the customers are very, very tough. But the toughest customers I know, period, which means they make us better. And the good thing is they made us better.
Well, that's great. That's great. Glad to hear that. As we begin to wrap up our conversation here, you obviously a CTO there, and you came obviously with a lot of experience to Cerebri, and your background. Did you actually help to write this platform? Were you doing code? And the like, or you're the visionary kind of big picture kind of guy?
I came after the company had been started for a couple of years. Jean Bélanger, our CEO, is a friend of mine. I've got to use the F word in this case. But he's a friend of mine, and it took him 19 years to convince me to work for him, so I know what I was getting into. And after my previous startup, I was doing into looking AI for politics. Opposite of this, it says, okay, and now that you're done dealing with your things, once you come over and do things. So there was some reinventing, I'll be honest, and there was building the team. The team was much smaller when I joined. And a lot of the things was to bring maturity, at least years of experience. We'll have to decide if it translates to maturity, to the team, and build it and force a robust roadmap. So my focus is system architecture and road mapping, and really try to anticipate where the value creation would be. I brought up a tremendous focus on patents. I'm a serial inventor, and when I say serial, I have 64 in the United States and close to 500 worldwide. So yeah, it's a bad habit. So we really build up our IP and build up the team, and a lot of co-marry the software and AI. And I'm very blessed from the fact that we were successful, because we worked hard on it to build a very strong team. The team that supports this effort is second to none. I had the privilege to do, this is my 5th startup. I work in mid-sized company. I work with Motorola, I work ComSat, GT, and so on. This is, on a per individual talent point of view, outstanding. And the challenge, of course, is that you have to have on your A game every single day. So the team will stay. I will not write code, but I will comment on it on a regular basis. I will be at review and the like. But we are empowering our engineers. We are empowering the developers very systematically, and they've risen to the occasion. We've been also working very hard with our early customers, and we owe them a debt of gratitude, because they push very hard. I mean, when you have marquee names and they ask tough questions, you have to be willing to walk into that hot kitchen, so to speak, and being seared a little or burned a little and what have you, but you're the stronger for it. So it's a good experience. It's not for everyone. We had some turnover, as you would expect. Data scientists are in hot demand. So we have to always be careful that we treat them well, that we engage them to the maximum of their capabilities. And we give them very difficult problems, because it builds up on their resume.
Yeah, they need to be challenged.
Yeah.
Well, no.
and challenge you back. It's a very strong culture. We are recording on a Thursday, and we have key presentations with a Canadian customer on Monday and with a French customer on Thursday next week. And we know exactly at what times the meetings on Saturdays and Sundays would have to take place. And besides the team, they are the spouses and the girlfriends and the boyfriends who have been supporting us indirectly to a large degree, and grateful for them as well.
Oh, that's great. So when you're not doing this stuff here and you're not, trying to make the world a better place and with your technology, so what do you do to take your focus away to, put your mind somewhere else?
Well, I'm advising two of our startups. This is really bad. One is one I started, so in the process of selling it, so I have no choice. It's my money. And the other one is an outfit called Gig to Gig, run by a very great Angela Kello, that is looking at AI for helping with the audition process. So that's kind of I do to explain the mind. Otherwise, my go-to relax is movies, watching movies, writing scripts, studying it and the like. I absolutely adore that art form. And then when I can afford it and the environment allows you to do so, is go to the opera. Huge opera fan.
Got you, like the arts. That's great. Are you still with us? You have frozen. I lost you.
We were frozen for a little while.
Yeah, it froze for a little bit. For a second. You there?
I am there.
Okay, great. So I appreciate you sharing what you do. That when you're not working, the other stuff. So rapid lightning round questions.
Sure.
To ask you. So you like coffee, hot or cold?
Hot.
Cold.
And lots of it.
Yeah, me too.
My mother was Turkish, and just to get the reference, the rule was that after 9 o'clock, in the evening, you could only have espressos. So yes, totally caffeinated.
Oh, wow. So your favorite food?
Sushi.
Sushi. Okay. Do you eat hot dogs?
No.
Okay. Burgers?
Yes.
You put ketchup or plain or not or mustard? What do you put on your burger?
I put fancy French mustard, of course.
Oh. Pizza?
Yes.
Like pizza. Apple or Android?
Totally Apple.
Yeah, typically the creative and the technical guys like the Apple for some reason. So obviously you're using a Mac.
Yes.
Laptop or a desktop?
Both.
Both, okay.
Laptop and desktop and iPad. The iPad is my go-to thing. I'm a bad sleeper. And so at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. if I wake up, I'll boot up the iPad and start working.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, no, it's not. Trust me.
Yeah. Some of the best thoughts happen early in the morning, at least for me anyway. If you can go anywhere on vacation and money and time was not an issue for you, where'd you go?
That's an interesting question. I'll answer with two answers. Typical. One, I'd like to take my my girlfriend to Paris together. I'm from Paris. She has been to Paris, but not together. So that's kind of the if you can spend a long time or what have you. But a place that I'd like to go is Eastern Island.
Oh, very nice. Dog, cat, or neither?
Dogs and more dogs.
Okay. And obviously, you like the art, you like the movies. You already said that.
Yep.
So, do you? If we weren't in this COVID situation, I'm assuming you'd go to the theater versus Netflix and Hulu.
Yes.
Be in the experience, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And last question: if you had a superpower, and you were given one superpower, what would that be?
I would remove the instincts that everybody has to see someone that doesn't agree with them to be the enemy. We have a reactive, polarized, especially in this country, but you start to see elsewhere, view that someone you disagree on issues is the other, the enemy, and what have you. So I would remove the gene that is kind of the other. I'm concerned that the rhetoric is starting to really be extremely unhealthy.
Mhm.
And I'm Jewish, and not that it makes a difference on this, but it's like, gosh, we're starting to sound like awfully things are read in books. So without going to remapping of what is story period versus the other,
Yeah.
is my boss Jean is as conservative as I'm liberal.
Mm.
And we will have debates and we will make the points and what have you, but we're doing it in a civil manner.
Sure.
And I can do that, with a lot of the people that I see around, but I see this otherism of people that don't agree with you as becoming rampant and rampant. So my magic power, not solve world hunger or be invisible and whatever, all those good things, but it would be if there is a gene or if there is a diet or there is something that remove the instinct to see the other one as other, then I think it would be what I'd like to do.
Powerful, well said. Let's see us as humans, uh,
Yep.
and love, coin a phrase, love each other, and just
Yep.
don't
Yep.
hold on to the negative. We have been interviewing Al, the CTO of Cerebri, a customer engagement platform that can take clients' data and help them understand it better to upsell, cross-sell, and also reduce churn. It can be used in multiple industries. We discussed quite a number of things here, and using data to make the customer experience better, but also make your business more profitable and grow and sell more to your existing customers. I would love the conversation. Al, you guys are doing some really exciting things there. You're an interesting man, and you got very interesting history. I see great things from what you're doing, and wish you all the best and success with this venture.
Thank you very much.
And your other stuff also, the other two you're working on the side as a side biz. Good for you.
Okay, thank you very much.
It was great interviewing you. We'll be in touch soon. All the best.